the flagship program in this state, right? And
a bullshit, a bullshit, a bullshit, a bullshit.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into another thrilling edition of Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. Thursday, September 19th, approximately 9:50 p.m. here in Houston, Texas. I am joined by my fantastic co-host and fellow Longhorn fan, Mr. Emmy Nixon. And tonight, we are previewing Week 4 in college football. We have 4 ranked matchups to get into, and then we are kicking off our 2024 version of college basketball coverage. We'll be getting into some freshman talk tonight. It should be a fun discussion, including the one, the only, Cooper Flagg. We will talk about him tonight. Is he a lock for National Freshman of the Year for the Duke Blue Devils? Before we do that, though, make sure you go check out our Patreon. If you don't know how to get there, there's a link down in the ticker, and you can also scan that QR code that you see on your screen. We put episodes on our Patreon, what would you say, about every month or so?
Yeah.
Pretty infrequently, but we do put them on there. You want to go check that content out. It's pretty good content, and it's free. But if you just want to support us on our YouTube, we also greatly appreciate that. That's where most of our content is, under the live section of our YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. It helps the algorithm and so forth. And we are grateful for that. So we have a lot to get to tonight. No time to waste. The Longhorns are number 1 in the country. They're taking on Louisiana Monroe on Saturday night with Arch Manning as the starting quarterback in lieu of Quinn Ewers, who is dealing with the strained oblique. I welcome in my co-host for some thoughts on the Longhorns to open up tonight's show, Mr. Emmy Nixon. What's up?
Nothing much, man. I've been thinking about being number 1 in the country and seeing all of the, Twitter talk that I've seen from Texas fans being like, oh, like, how is this going to affect the team? Like, is it going to make us soft or whatever? Like, just shut up and enjoy it. Like, what are you doing? But we got a lot to get to tonight. I'm excited, man. It should be a good weekend of college football.
Yeah, we have 4 ranked matchups to get into tonight. One of which will happen tomorrow night in the Big Ten. We have another matchup in the Big Ten on CBS on Saturday afternoon between USC and Michigan. We'll also talk about a ranked Big 12 matchup and a ranked SEC matchup here tonight, including our rival Oklahoma Sooners hosting their first SEC game in Norman on Saturday night. So let's go ahead and jump right into our games tonight. We're going to do it a little bit differently tonight. We're going to have 6 minutes on the clock to preview each of these games. So let me get out my timer. 6 minutes on the clock. Our first game tonight is number 24, Illinois, at number 22, Nebraska. Nebraska favored by 7.5 points. This game can be seen tomorrow, Friday, 7 p.m. on Fox. A matchup of undefeated Big Ten teams. Emmy, to start our 6 minutes, can Nebraska stay undefeated and get to 4-0 at home against the Illini? What say you?
Well, I'll start with this. I'm just gonna say, Nebraska should be much higher than 22 in the country, and that's not a complete hot take. I think that's a pretty much common belief at this point from college football fans. But I think that's number 1. Like, I think the spread should tell you all you need to know in terms of what this matchup actually is. Like, I think in reality, Nebraska is the better football team. It's just going to come down to, are they going to make the mistakes that we saw them make last year, and with turnovers and just bad decision making from their quarterback? And whether or not Illinois can, I guess continue to run the football the way they have been. They weren't able to do that last year. I think they ended up only running the football 19 times and passing 42 times in last year's game. So they didn't even try to run the football against this Nebraska defense. So I think Nebraska is just the better football team. It's just going to come down to, can Illinois make this true freshman quarterback's head spin a little bit? Because this is like, it is a home game, but this is like a big test in terms of a higher quality defense.
Right. I think ultimately, like in most Big Ten games, this is ultimately going to come down to the line of scrimmage. For Nebraska, the thing that's driven their offense so far has been their running game. They're averaging over 170 yards on the ground so far this year. That has opened up the passing game with some of their young freshmen, including one of their tight ends, and Isaiah Nair, who's been a big part of their offense on the outside. I think the keys for Nebraska offensively: continue to run the football. Where Illinois' defense has been weakest so far has been up front in the run game. They're giving up, I don't know the exact statistic, over 160 yards in the run game so far. The secondary is where the strength of that defense is. If Nebraska can win the line of scrimmage, blow that front seven off the ball and run the football, control the pace, sustain long drives, create third and manageable for Dylan Raiola, Nebraska should win this game, and I think they should win it convincingly. Now, for Illinois, one thing you have to do is finish in the red zone. You got to finish with touchdowns. I have 2 minutes, 40 seconds left on my timer. You got to finish with touchdowns. Luke Altmaier, their quarterback, has been very good, turnover free so far this season. 6 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. You want to continue that, and their offensive line has got to protect him. Where Nebraska has been really good so far this season, as we saw against Colorado, has been pressuring quarterbacks. That front seven is physical. They get after you. You need to protect Luke Altmaier. And you need to finish drives in the red zone. It's going to take touchdowns to beat this Nebraska team on the road, not field goals. However, before we move on, I wanted to get your actual pick for the game. Are you taking Nebraska to win and cover the 7.5, or are you taking a more competitive game?
Well, I think Illinois' defense is legit, so I got to give them credit and say this will be a close game, I think. I do think Nebraska is the better team, and I do think they're going to end up pulling this game out. But one guy that I look at on Illinois is Zachary Franklin, the transfer from Ole Miss, who he's had a couple of big games to start this season. I think he has close to 300 receiving yards over those first few games. So that's the key player that I'm looking at for Illinois. If they can get a little bit of that passing game going like they have been, and from there open up the run game, I think they'll have a much better shot than if they just start out trying to run the ball on first and second down. So I am going to take Nebraska to win, but I'm going to say final score 28-24.
Okay. So you are taking the over on the total. For me, I think where Illinois has kind of struggled so far has been on their offensive line. To me, this game could ultimately come down to whether or not Illinois can protect Luke Altmaier. And from what I've seen so far with that Nebraska front and the way that they get after quarterbacks, I think Nebraska will ultimately win that war on that side of the ball. And I think their running game will be able to control tempo. I think they'll sustain some drives as time runs out. And I'm going to take them to win and cover, but slightly. I think it'll be a game where it's close in the fourth quarter and Nebraska kind of pulls away in the fourth quarter. I'll take Nebraska 28-20. 28-20.
Okay.
All right, on to our next game. We went just over 6 minutes there, no problem at all. We're going to talk about this Big 12 game, and we're going to assume that Cam Rising is playing. We have no official update there, but we think he's going to play. So we're going to assume in this preview that he does play. Number 12, Utah, at number 14, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State favored at home by 2.5. Basically what that's telling you is if these two teams matched up on a neutral field, it would be basically a pick 'em.
Yeah.
Pretty evenly matched teams. Big game to start off Big 12 play for both of these teams. Saturday, 3 p.m. on Fox. Emmy, what say you?
Yeah, really big game. These two teams facing each other in their first Big 12 game of the season, like, it's massive. Like, the winner of this game could be in the Big 12 title game. With Kansas out of the picture and with Colorado and their struggles, and there's a few other teams in the mix, but these two teams to me might end up eliminating the other from the picture. So it's such a huge game. To me, it comes down to, can Oklahoma State limit the explosive plays? If you look at how they matched up with Arkansas a few weeks ago in that overtime win that they just barely pulled out, they gave up, I think, 8 plays of 25 yards or more. That's concerning. And that's not just deep passes. That's tackling. That's blown coverages. That won't fly against Utah. I think Cam Rising, being as experienced as he is, and obviously Oklahoma State has an experienced guy as well. That's a big storyline. But Cam Rising, being the level of passer that he is, will be able to take advantage of those things. And they have the weapons to take advantage as well. So that's where I see the edge for Utah. Even though it's going to be on the road in a really tough environment in Stillwater, I still think I like Utah's physicality on defense, and I trust Cam Rising more.
Yeah, I think where I look in this game for Oklahoma State so far, who was supposed to be the catalyst of their entire team? Who was the running back that we thought potentially was going to be the best running back in the country? A running back who was coming back for another season and was going to be a front runner for the Doak Walker Award, Ollie Gordon. And so far this season, for whatever reason, they've struggled to get the run game going. They've struggled to get that catalyst going in the run game. He's carried the ball more than 20 times per game, so he's getting the necessary workload. He's taking some pressure off of Alan Bowman, their quarterback. But he has just 216 rushing yards on 3.5 yards per carry. That is not good. Not good for a guy that we thought was going to be in the running for the Doak Walker Award, or at very least be the front runner potentially. I worry about that against this physical Kyle Whittingham defense. Up front, they do what Utah does well is they run the football and they stop the run. So in order for Oklahoma State to sustain drives, they have to figure out how to get Ollie Gordon the ball and how to run the football more effectively. They have to win that battle on the offensive line. Another reason I'm not so confident in Oklahoma State, even though this game is in Stillwater, is Oklahoma State, their offensive line came into college football most experienced, or among the most experienced in the country. So they have the experience and they've blocked the pass well. But if you're struggling to if you're struggling to run the ball, I can't talk today for some reason. You're going to be in a lot of third and long situations, and that gives Utah pass rush, which ranks top 15 nationally with 10 sacks in 3 games, an opportunity to really tee off. And I don't trust Alan Bowman when he's under pressure. So ultimately, if Rising's healthy, I think Oklahoma State will put up a fight just because they have the home field, but I'm taking Utah to win outright.
Yeah, same here. I think the edge goes to the team with the better quarterback in this scenario.
Yeah, and Cam Rising, when Cam Rising is healthy, since 2021, Utah is 19-5. So in games that he starts and finishes. So I think if he's healthy and Isaac Wilson, the brother of Zach Wilson, is not forced into this hostile road environment in Stillwater where weird things can happen, I think Utah wins this game. And I think they do it probably by a touchdown or so. I don't know that they'll run away from Oklahoma State just because I don't know how explosive their offense is. But I do think with some of the struggles that you mentioned on that Oklahoma State defense, they'll be able to create some plays, and that run game will control the entire game. Okay, well, we did that one in under 6 minutes, so good for us. Another afternoon game before we get to the marquee. This one also in the Big Ten. Number 11, USC, going into the Big House, as we've already seen Texas go there and win. Number 18, Michigan, who makes a quarterback change this week. They will be starting Alex Orji at quarterback instead of Davis Warren. This kind of feels like a back against the wall game for Michigan. And USC, on the other hand, has looked very good. Their defense looks much improved. So Saturday, 2:30 on CBS. Emmy, will USC prove to us that they really are different this year?
Well, I think it's just going to come down to how good is Miller Moss really? That's the question that I think is going to be answered Saturday. Because listening to Josh Pate earlier, the way he put it is, we'll find out whether USC's defense is really physical enough to stop Michigan's run game. And of course, that's important. But I think ultimately, if USC puts up more than 20 points, realistically, that is enough to win this game. I just don't see enough offensive firepower from the Michigan Wolverines right now, especially with Colston Loveland, their number one target at tight end, out for this game. So with the change at quarterback, they're going to look to be kind of this, I guess, gimmicky dual threat type of offense, kind of running the football 45, 50 times a game. And I think USC will be prepared for that.
Michigan is turning to Alex Orji, who is a running quarterback. And where I worry about this for Michigan is it's not just a quarterback change. Joel Klatt talked about this. It's an entire philosophy change from what you had with Davis Warren, and at least being able to attempt to throw the ball downfield. We don't know if Alex Orji or this coaching staff, Sharon Moore and co., have enough confidence in letting Alex Orji attempt to throw the ball down the field. And if he does, who are those playmakers on the outside for Michigan? I have not seen those yet. And if Colston Loveland isn't on the field, that takes away a large part of their offense. So what it comes down to for Michigan is they're going to have to play a boa constrictor kind of football game that you used to beat teams with back in the early Jim Harbaugh days when they had Spates at quarterback. I can't remember his first name. When they had those kinds of quarterbacks They're going to have to win that way. They're going to have to drag USC into a physical game. And look, going into it in the Big House a couple weeks ago, we felt pretty good that Texas was going to be ready for the fight. And they were. They blew Michigan off the ball on the offensive line. They dominated that game physically on both sides of the line of scrimmage. So they immediately eliminated any advantage that Michigan thought they might have going into the game. That's what USC needs to prove to me that they can do if they want to be elevated into another tier of contender. Can they compete with the Ohio States and the Texases? They look better. They look well coached. They've done a better job tackling so far. And I think you're right about the quarterback situation. I think we're going to find out how good he really is. But I feel good about their playmakers. You only have one Will Johnson. After that, Texas proved to you that this secondary, while it's still very good, not denying that, you can have your way with it if you have enough weapons on the outside. I like USC and the points. I'll lay the points here. I think they're ready for this. And I think they'll prove to us two things. Number one, Michigan isn't a top 25 team. I don't think they are. And number two, I think USC is a top 10 team. I don't know why they're not ranked in the top 10 right now. But I think they'll win this game fairly convincingly, maybe not as convincingly as Texas did. And they will be in the top 10 next week. That's just what I believe. So I'll take USC to win and cover on the road.
Okay, yeah. I think Michigan's going to keep this close just because you can't fake desperation. I think you're going to see a desperate team come out with this Michigan situation. Like, they're defending national champs. Like, they know how to win. It's just whether or not they can actually put this thing together, like, with it being so chaotic right now with this new quarterback. Like, if Alex Orji was really the guy to be able to win a game like this, he would have been the starter from the start. Like, he was the guy we thought was going to win the job, and then he just didn't. Like, he just wasn't good enough. So we'll see, but I do think Michigan will keep this up and put up a fight. I'm going to say 17-12. I'm going to say 4 field goals for Michigan.
Okay, and the key here for Michigan has to be Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings, who's been fantastic so far this season. They're going to have to mix it up in the run game because against Texas, when they brought Alex Orji into the game, you knew what they were going to do. They were going to snap it to him, and he was going to pick a side and run the ball. And Texas knew that. They have to be more creative in running the football. I think they will be. I just think if USC can get a rhythm early offensively, we'll see. I think they'll win by about a touchdown, maybe a little more than that. We will see what happens. Okay, this is the marquee game for this weekend in the SEC. Oklahoma, number 15 in the country, undefeated, although they've had some close calls so far. Hosting number 6 Tennessee, who's absolutely mashed everybody in their pass so far. -6.5. You can find this some places at -7.5. I just took the first line that I saw. This game will be Saturday, 6:30 on ABC. So, Emmy Nixon, what do you think?
Man, I mean, I'll start with this. You have Tennessee, who has just absolutely crushed everyone they've played so far this year. So everyone's looking at Tennessee like, are you for real? Like, this is the game where we're going to find out. Because Oklahoma's defense, if we know anything about Oklahoma, their defense is legit. And we know Brent Venables is going to have a creative plan to make Nico's head spin a little bit. It's kind of the same thing we talked about with Dylan Raiola, except even more so because I think Oklahoma has a bit more juice on offense than Illinois. But on the road in this environment, we're going to really find out who this Tennessee team is. That's what I'm most excited for, to be honest. And then from an Oklahoma standpoint, we still don't know if they're going to be healthy from a weapon standpoint. They're looking to get their star wide receiver back. I can't think of his name right now, but it's looking like he's going to give it a go and play. So if he does, then maybe this Oklahoma offense will have a bit more juice than what they showed in these last few weeks against Houston and can't remember who they played last week, but this Oklahoma offense definitely needs to step it up a bit because this is going to be a tough test if they can't move the ball.
Yeah, I think number one, this is an interesting storyline game because Josh Heupel is facing his alma mater in Oklahoma. He wins a national championship for Oklahoma back in his playing days. It'll be a cool dynamic there. And we've already seen it kind of play out in the pregame festivities. This is a big test for Oklahoma. I think we're going to learn what Texas is really going to face in a couple weeks in Dallas when the Red River game comes up on the schedule. They've struggled offensively, and what it really boils down to for me is, number one, they've been missing Nick Anderson, and that's a big part of it. I think he's going to play this week. I think he'll add a downfield kind of dynamic, somewhat explosive playmaking element to their offense, which they're in need of. They've struggled so far to create explosive plays in the passing game consistent. I don't know the exact statistics. They're a good rushing team. Like, they can run the football. Jackson Arnold has some mobility with his legs. He's pretty athletic, but that's not their calling card offensively. And so against this Tennessee front with a really banged up offensive line, I think they're on their third string center is what I heard the other night. With James Pierce and this Tennessee front seven, which I think is one of the best, not only in the SEC, but in America. That's where you really look is, can OU pass protect? Can they generate enough explosive plays down the field? Will Nick Anderson make that much of a difference? I think he will, but will it be enough? Can they get the ball on the outside to Burks, the receiver from Purdue? Like, those are all questions for me. On the other side, for OU, this is a really good defense. That's what kind of gives me confidence they can stay in this game. I think Venables has been preparing for this. I think he's going to throw a lot of different looks at Nico, try to get in his head, force some turnovers, which Oklahoma has done very well early on in the season. Danny Stutzman's playing like an All-American. Can they stop that run game? Dylan Sampson has gone berserk. And I get it. You can say, well, who has Tennessee played? This will be really their first test, like against a really good, I say top 30 caliber defense in the country. If Tennessee, though, can do what they want to and sustain a running game, I don't know that Oklahoma has much of a chance. However, I'm going to give Oklahoma some benefit of the doubt here. It's their first SEC game. It's not like either side has a significant quarterback advantage. These are both basically true freshmen starting quarterbacks. There's not an experience advantage on one side or the other. I think both defenses are really good. We're going to see how good the Tennessee secondary is in this game. That would be like my one thing I kind of question for Tennessee so far is how good is this kind of retooled secondary? I think we're going to see that. But I think Oklahoma, first SEC game at home in Norman, tough place to play with that defense. I think they're going to prove to some people kind of the stones of this football team. I don't think they're going to win the game. because I think Tennessee has too much in the explosive pass play department. But I do think like this will come down to a fourth quarter fight. So I'll take Tennessee to win, but I'll take Oklahoma to cover. Josh Pate talked about this earlier tonight on his show. Oklahoma, he put this on his upset meter at an 8. It's a true freshman quarterback in his first true road game. Weird things can happen. So I do think Tennessee wins, but I think Oklahoma covers.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma covers as well. Just I can't just pick them to win though. I can't do it. I gotta see it a little bit more with Jackson Arnold, and I'll keep this brief. But I think with them circling this on the calendar, it'll mean one of two things: either they come out a little bit too hyped up, and we see a bit of like mental mistakes, like I guess emotional penalties is what you could call it. Either that or they come out completely locked in. So we'll see which one it is.
Yeah, should be a great game. Other sleepy games, if you're interested, this week in college football, Auburn is playing Arkansas. That could be a good one. I think NC State gets Clemson in the early window. See how good Clemson is. They've built some momentum here in the past couple weeks. There will be some other good games around the country, but not enough to where we're going to talk about it here. Before we move on to basketball, do you have a score prediction for UL Monroe in Texas?
Ooh. I mean, after the shade that defensive coordinator was throwing at us, might as well add a good 15, 20 points to that scoreboard. I mean, I'm going to say 52-6.
Okay. I think the line is like 44 and a half, 45. The question really to me is, does Texas cover that spread? I think they do. Sark has been pretty conservative in calling off the dogs here lately, kind of late third quarter, early fourth quarter. But I do think we'll see some Trey Owens probably in the fourth quarter. I think Arch will play most of the game though. I think this will be good experience for him. I think Texas, I think it's similar to what we saw last week. The question to me is like, how much does General Booty in that UL Monroe offense score? Maybe a couple field goals. I don't know that they get into the end zone. I'll say 56-10. 56-10. I'll give them a late score or something.
Did I hear that right? Is their quarterback's name General Booty?
Yep. His name's General Booty.
Wow.
He was a backup at Oklahoma as recently as like last year. So
Interesting.
yeah, he's been around for a while. His name's General Booty. So it'll be Arch Manning against General Booty in that game.
I hope if he becomes the quarterback for the Commanders, that would be like the greatest irony in history.
Okay. Anyways, people. College basketball. Okay. So, what do you want to start with Trey Johnson first, or do you want to go more national first and talk about Cooper Flagg?
Let's start with Cooper Flagg. We haven't really talked about him much off air, but I mean, from what I've seen, I mean, it seems like he's a confident scorer who I think has a lot of high potential in the defensive end of the floor. That's where I'm excited to see, like from an NBA draft standpoint, like what is his ceiling defensively, and is he going to show that in his freshman year out of the gate? Because I know he's going to be able to score the ball. I think I'm pretty confident he's going to be essentially what Dalton Connect was for Tennessee last year. Kind of can go off the dribble a bit, but is a little bit more comfortable. Kind of one dribble pull ups, working the mid range, catch and shoot threes, things like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of newness to this Duke team. They're bringing in a lot of freshmen, 3 transfers, only a couple returning starters to this team, and Tyrese Proctor, thinking of another offensive lineman. And then Caleb Foster, who was a freshman last year. There are people in college basketball circles, and this is my analogy, but there are people in college basketball circles who believe that Cooper Flagg is going to be the best player in college basketball, period, this year. He is really one of a kind when you watch him on film in these high school games. And when you watch his highlights playing against the U.S. men's national team, grown men in the NBA, and what he did and how glowingly these NBA stars speak of Cooper Flagg. I think officially he's listed around 6'8", 6'9"-ish is what they measured him. But you talked about it. I think the thing that might make him special are his instincts and the way that he plays defense, like his basketball IQ and his instincts, the way that he pursues the basketball defensively, and the way that he recognizes different things on the basketball court to be able to position himself to be a really good rim protector. I think he's a really good rim protector. I think he will be early, right away. I think he's going to be very impactful as a freshman on the defensive end of the floor. I think he'll be able to guard multiple positions. But I think as a rim protector is where you're really going to see his value early on. The question is he ready physically for some of the challenges that he's going to face in the ACC down low? And can he play that kind of defense without fouling? I know he's not as big as Ryan Kalkbrenner for Creighton, but the reason Ryan Kalkbrenner is a 3-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year, looking to be one of the only people to do it 4 times, is because he does not foul. He protects the rim, but he does not foul. Can Cooper Flagg do that? And is he ready physically? He's got a complete game on offense. He can score at the rim. He can shoot it from outside. He's going to continue to develop that. But is this Duke team, and Cooper Flagg specifically, ready physically? I think once he's on campus and starts to develop, he's obviously already starting that, I think we'll see him get stronger and better throughout the season. But just from my knowledge of Cooper Flagg, he is, I think, going to be tough to beat for National Freshman of the Year. Duke, I mean, they're going to be playing in high-level basketball games. They're probably going to be a top 10 team for most of the season if everything comes together. I think he's going to average a double-double. Like, I think it'll be that kind of thing. He'll be one of the better players on their team. I think he's going to be tough to beat, but our question here is he a lock? I don't believe that he's a lock. A lot of things can happen that make things go haywire in college basketball. I don't know that he's a lock, but he's as close as you can get to a lock if he stays healthy. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think the hype train is definitely on his side for sure. Like, he starts out the season as a household name in college basketball, which is really only been seen with Zion and a couple other names here and there. Maybe Chet Holmgren, kind of.
Right. He's going to be one of the bigger storylines of this college basketball season for many reasons. Before we kind of wrap things up and get out of here, I wanted to make this a pretty quick conversation. We'll continue this conversation about freshmen later on. Trey Johnson for Texas. We're going to be talking a lot about Texas basketball. That's going to be a central focus, obviously, up deep in the heart of Longhorn sports. He's another 5-star freshman. What are your, going into the season? We're about a month and a couple weeks away. We're about 6 weeks away, I would say, around there. What are your expectations for Trey Johnson? And you can take this in a lot of ways. Where do you see him fitting into this offense? Where do you kind of see his numbers falling? Do you think he becomes one of the better players on this team? You can take it in a lot of different directions. But Trey Johnson out of Link Academy, where do you think he ends up? How do you think his season ends up?
Well, I think it's all just going to depend on. I think the start of the season is going to be really important for him because just from a confidence standpoint, if you come out first few games and you go out and pull up 10 points on good efficiency, you're going to know you belong at that point. You're going to feel much more confident going into the rest of the season in conference play and all that. So that's the big thing for me is can he get off to a good start? Can he kind of establish himself into the rotation? Because we see a lot of times with freshmen, it's if you come out the gates shooting poorly and you start turning the ball over and things kind of spiral, you kind of lose confidence. That it can get out of hand quickly, and then all of a sudden you're out of the rotation. So I don't think that'll happen, by the way. I just think the start of the season is really important. And honestly, I don't want to put any stats out there that I think he should reach. I think it's just going to be one of those things that we just gauge as the season goes along.
Yeah, watching Trey Johnson throughout his high school days as he enters, his freshman year, he showed that his best attribute is scoring. So I do think he's going to be able to score in a variety of ways, primarily pulling gravity off the ball in catch and shoot situations. He's got a really smooth, nice, consistent jump shot with range that extends beyond the three-point arc. He's got a good, repeatable, quick shot. I think he'll be a good shooter. I think he can play off the ball and kind of be a floor spacer for Texas. My question, and I think this is where the next step for Trey Johnson will be at the next level, playing in the SEC, will be putting pressure on the rim offensively as a primary initiator in pick and roll situations or just in one-on-one situations, being able to get to the rim. He's a very skilled scorer. He can do a lot of things, but when you watch him at the high school level, he doesn't make a ton of scoring plays at the rim. I think that's where going up against some pretty lengthy, athletic wing defenders that are kind of his size and of his ilk in college basketball this year. For example, when Texas plays, UConn, going up against an Alex Caravan or someone of that ilk, can he create plays at the rim? That'll be, I think, the next step for him in his offensive arsenal. Can he create and be an elite scorer? Not necessarily even an elite scorer, but can he be effective in creating at the rim? Other than that, though, I have a lot of confidence that he's going to have a fantastic freshman season. I think he's going to continue adding strength, which will help him and his ability to be physical and score at the rim. But I think he's a springy athlete, and I think his length will help him on the defensive end of the floor. He's got a plus wingspan, twitchy athleticism. He's got good anticipation, good instincts. He just needs to stay engaged on the defensive end of the floor. That can sometimes be hard for freshmen. But I think Trey Johnson is going to be one of the better freshmen on both ends of the floor that we've seen at Texas, maybe since Kevin Durant, if he can reach his full potential.
Yeah, definitely. And I like his athleticism from a quickness standpoint. Like he's not really a guy that's really going to go vertical through contact, which is, I think, part of your point with him being able to finish at the basket, because he's going to have to learn how to finish through contact a little bit more and get stronger. But also with him and really just any guard, can he make the correct read? Also, just when the offense flows to him, like, can he make quick decisions with the ball? Like I see too many times with young players, it's like a lot of like hesitation, and then all of a sudden the offensive flow just kind of bogs down. So I think everything we've mentioned is going to be huge for him. It's just, we got to see him play pretty much. I mean, I think for me personally, I haven't seen an actual game. I've really only seen highlights. I don't know if you have actually gone back and watched actual film, but for me, it's just, I want to actually see him play.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things that makes this Texas basketball season really exciting, is they have a 5-star freshman top 10 caliber player in America, like at the high school level, coming in, whose best attribute is his ability to score the basketball. He is a bona fide scorer, and he's a really good shooter. I just want to see, like, how does Rodney Terry deploy him in his rotations? Is he starting right away, or is he coming off the bench initially? And then when he is playing, what does that look like? Is he more of a 2-guard playing next to a Jordan Pope or Julian Larry? Or where is he playing? And who is he? What's his role defensively? There are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And in order for them to be answered, we're going to have to see it actually play out. But I think as an initial conversation, an introduction to college basketball in 2024, 2025, talking about some of the newcomers, the new faces in college basketball was a good place to start. Cooper Flagg's obviously going to be a big face. Trey Johnson, I think, could put himself into the freshman of the year discussion, especially in the SEC. And then there are other guys around the country that will have big impacts on their teams. We talk about, BJ Edgecombe. If you haven't watched him, he's going to be a freshman at Baylor. He's fantastic. There are other guys around the country that this is a good freshman class. And it's what makes, I think, the NBA draft next year so interesting, more interesting than this past year's draft. Because I think you will have kind of that jewel at the top, like that guy that you want, Cooper Flagg. And then there's a lot of guys behind him, including Trey Johnson. Can he put himself in top 10 pick conversations? That'll be a question.
I think the thing that I'm most excited about is it's been a while since Texas has had a bona fide scorer that doesn't have to dominate the ball. And I'm not throwing shade at like Max Abmas or anything like that. It's just really going to be interesting to see if he can really be that 18, 17 point a game guy without having to have the ball in his hand all the time.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay. Any parting shots? It can be college basketball related. It can be college football related, or it could even be, I guess, personal. Do you have anything that you wanted to get off your chest before we wrap up tonight's podcast?
Well, I think you know what? I actually don't really have anything to say. I I was trying to think of something up, but I really don't have nothing to say.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Um, we are home to the number one college football team in America, so hook 'em horns, obviously. Hopefully we lay it on UL Monroe this weekend with Arch Manning being a big topic of conversation. We previewed the 4 ranked games in college football this week and made our picks. We talked a little bit, gave you guys a sneak peek into freshmen who are entering college basketball this season. Season starts early November, so we're really not that far away. We still have a little over a month, but I mean, November 4th, Texas opens the season against Ohio State. So we're really not that far. Before you know it, it will be here. And then we obviously have the NBA coming up, and the WNBA playoffs actually start on Sunday, I believe. So I have some things to talk to Emmy about off camera, but until Sunday night, unless we do something before then, my name is Michael Ween. He's Emmy Nixon, and we are signing off. Hook 'em horns and peace out.